If you couldn't tell by now, the Thomas franchise is all about trains. The real-life train elements are what ultimately make Thomas what it is, and why it has such a big following today. It is ultimately what led me to create my channel and AU. However, an aspect of the Thomas universe I don't see interpreted into headcanon too often is one that is very overlooked: the buses. There are not many bus characters in this franchise, but the main two are Bertie and Bulgy. But the question I ask today is, what about the other buses we see in the background or in magazine stories, for example? What about them? This video will explore Bertie's home on Sodor and the buses that worked with him under the Sodor Bus Company. Just a heads up before we continue, this video is purely headcanon. None of the information in this video is official fact or canon. It's just for a bit of fun. It's just for my AU, which I call the Porterverse. But yeah. Now then, without further ado, let's begin. It all began in the 1920s. The Sodor Bus Company begins its operations in Lower Tidmouth. Rather than ordering new builds from other companies or purchasing older buses, the Sodor Bus Company decided to be bold with their beginnings and build their buses from scratch themselves. The first bus design of theirs was inspired by a variety of buses from across the UK, but were also uniquely Sodorian in their own right. The first bus to be built to this very first design was none other than Bertie. Bertie was the newest bus on the block when he rescued Thomas's passengers after they got stuck in the snow. In the spring of that following year, Bertie will have his race with Thomas, and ultimately lose. Bertie would continue his services as per usual, and worked closely with the railways of Sodor. Over time, more buses will be built to his design, although most of them weren't sentient. By 1934, 8 buses were built for the Sodor Bus Company, and by this point, the company had exploded in size, and was now prominent across the entire island of Sodor. The company was looking to introduce a new class of buses to expand their fleet to meet new demands. This new class would be sort of a plus version of Bertie's class, increased length to accommodate more seating, and improved engine design. There were 10 of this new design built, and most of them worked around the eastern parts of Sodor. Among the sentient members of the class was a bus named Beatrice. In terms of her character, imagine if Daisy was a bus, but also a little more polite in a sense too. So yeah. For a good while, the two bus classes, the J1 and J2 respectively, dominated passenger demands on the roads. Even the Northwestern Railway was noticing the presence of the SBC by this point, and so the railway used the opportunity to build a relationship with the bus company, having some branch line passenger trains offer bus connections further into towns beyond the reach of the railway. And this deal worked tremendously in the favor of the Sodor Bus Company, and it began to thrive for the longest time. That was until a dreaded September day in 1939. World War II caused everything to shit the bed completely. All production of vehicles on Sodor were halted, and the materials were used to pump out weapons and supplies for the Allies. The size of the Sodor Bus Company's bus roster was in the high 30s in 1939. By 1941, the fleet was down to just 12 working buses. The company was very much considering closing for good, but the manager at the time, Derek Oliver, insisted on holding out for the foreseeable future. The Sodor Bus Company miraculously survived the war, but still had a long line of hurdles to overcome. From 1946 to 1950, the SBC was barely breaking even, and it was lucky they would have a month with a return of profit. In 1951, they got a buyout offer from the new overseers of Sodor's railways. British Railways was interested in purchasing the company, and the SBC considered it for a brief bit, but they found that the deal would see most of the bus routes closed and the fleet size reduced dramatically, and ultimately replaced with their own buses. Upon discovering this, the Sodor Bus Company told British Railways to fuck off, and so they continued on their own. British Railways was not happy with this whatsoever, and they began competing with the SBC on the roads with their lorries, and even some of their own buses too, out of sheer spite. The Sodor Bus Company had now gained a distinct hatred for BR, and began to clap back. They were adamant on beating British Railways on the roads. In 1951, the company introduced an all-new class of bus. This new bus design had an extra set of wheels at the back, was taller, and also a little more comfortable than previous classes. The newly built J3 buses were a class of 6, but only one of them was sentient. His name was Bobbert. Bobbert was very energetic. It would sometimes have minor accidents. Nothing like crazy or anything, but just enough to get a little scar on his face. Bobbert would eventually become very chummy with Bertie over time. That wasn't the last of the Sodor Bus Company's efforts to overtake British Railways on the roads. They were still going at it up through 1958, when they introduced their first ever double-decker bus. The J4 bus, known as Bulgy, was the only one of its class built before British Railways backed off. Bulgy, as we all know, ended up being a dick and was avidly anti-railway, which did sort of work in the SBC's favor for a bit, until he started acting hostile towards the Northwestern region in particular. There was even one instance where he was cursing out some of the Sudrian engines unprovoked. You can just imagine how that went. Eventually, Bulgy would be withdrawn from service after his little stunt trying to one-up Duck and got stuck under a bridge. By this point, the company was just sick of Bulgy and just left him by the road, and they forgot about him for a good while. It would be a very long time before Bulgy would get a second lease on life. The competition with British Railways actually proved to help the Sodor Bus Company, and they were the most profitable they'd ever been by 1965. It was even better for them when British Railways left Sodor entirely, but things started to look dim right afterwards. You see, the SBC's new manager was a penny pincher, and he tried to cut costs everywhere, undermining safety, worker salaries, and other aspects from his appointment in 1972 all the way to 1979. By that point, the bosses of the fleets and the drivers were absolutely fed up with the manager's bullshit, and worked to remove him. Especially more so after the manager threatened to scrap all those against him. By this point, word had gone to the Northwestern Railway, and they ultimately stepped in offering to make a deal with the Sodor Bus Company. The current manager would be paid a portion of the buyout value in exchange for stepping away, which the money-hungry bastard did almost immediately, as you can expect. With that, his reign came to an end, and the Northwestern Railway was now in full ownership of the Sodor Bus Company, and they appointed a new manager in his place, none other than SBC alumni Loam Hatt. Loam Hatt became the official manager by 1980 when the full buyout deal was done. With this new start of an era for the SBC, all the legacy class members were fully restored. Even Bulgy was brought back, although he became a vegetable truck for the first decade. By that point, he was tremendously humbled, and is now much more respectful towards railways and those around him. Loam Hatt would see to it that more bus routes were created and also interlinked with the Northwestern services. By 1990, the company was thriving truly. One of the last initiatives Loam Hatt put forward as manager was to gradually convert the buses into hybrids and build new electric buses, as he moved to make the company carbon neutral by a certain point. By 2010, Bertie, Bobbert, Beatrice, and Algae were converted into hybrids. According to Bertie and some passengers, this is ultimately for the better, as it makes journeys a lot quieter and the smell of petrol is substantially decreased, making for a better experience. Loam Hatt will name his successor before passing away in 2012. The new manager was his distant cousin, Robin Murdoch. As the new manager of the Sodor Bus Company, Robin continued Loam's initiatives of making the company carbon neutral, but with a retro-futurism twist on the designs of new buses being built. Robin is still the manager of the Sodor Bus Company as of 2025, and plans to stick around for a bit longer. He still has the support of the bus company's board and the Northwestern Railway helping him meet his goals for the company. According to him, he plans to retire once the true carbon neutral goal is met, which is projected to be met by around 2028-2029-ish. But then again, it isn't fully guaranteed if he'll step down or not. Only time will tell who will be the next manager of the Sodor Bus Company. And that, my friends, is the history of the Sodor Bus Company. A rather overlooked aspect of the Thomas mythos. but an aspect I feel is pretty underrated. It was a nice change to explore the world of Sodor beyond the railways for once. Hardly anyone really does this, I feel. Especially since I love Bertie as a character. He is one of my favorites ever, and is easily the best non-rail character of the franchise. And speaking of Bertie, I do have a model made of him. He was finished a long time ago actually, but I've had to showcase him. Which is a good segue into my next topic. This video is the last upload in February, I believe. And so March is going to be a fun month. I'll be doing a little events I like to call March Model Madness, where all of March will be dedicated to models that are mostly long overdue for showcases. So models like Bertie, Goober Edward I've been promising, and Casey will finally get into showcases in a 4-peat of the Porterverse workbench. Or 5, I guess, I think. I have to check the calendar again. That won't be the end of model stuff this year. Oh no, we're only getting started. Loads more models that I've made are on the way for showcases. Rosie is done as of writing this, and my model Centurion from Transformers will likely be done by the time this video is uploaded. So stay tuned for those showcases, among others like Belle, Flora Stanley, all those guys, and also a lot of other videos outside this series in the near future. Thank you all very much for watching this, and I shall see you all same time next week.